Part 57. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 561. Where is this? Minister Yan, who was sleeping, was shocked when he saw the palace that appeared in his dream. The palace is surrounded by clouds, cranes are flying, and the golden palace in the dojo is decorated with white jade steps and golden dragon pillars. It is magnificent and majestic, just like the legendary heavenly palace. Minister Yan has never had such a dream, because he is a rigorous person, especially after becoming a summoner. In order to recharge his energy, every time he sleeps in a deep sleep with no dreams or less dreams, which is most beneficial to he had not had such a brilliant and real dream to regain his energy for many years. Moreover, the situation in Paris has been tense these past 2 days. Minister Yan spends most of every day in the intelligence center of the Committee of Order, paying close attention to the changes in the situation in Paris and the evacuation of the Chinese in Paris, let alone dreaming. But the palace in front of him was so real that Minister Yan couldn't help but walked into the palace. Then, he saw a man with a dazzling golden mask on his face and an emperor's dragon robe. He was as majestic as an emperor, sitting high on the throne of the palace, looking down at him. I heard that you want me to help you integrate the Xia realm pearl. Xiaopingan, who was sitting on the high platform, spoke. Xiaopingan's voice became majestic and deep at this moment, and the rumbling voice echoed in the palace. Judging from the voice, one might think that the real age of the person behind the mask is probably around 50 years old. In addition to the voice, Xiaopingan's body shape has also changed somewhat. He is 2 inches taller than Luoan, and his shoulders look the height is also slightly wider, and under the mask is another face different from Luoan. No matter how talented Minister Yan is, it is impossible to recognize him. Minister Yan was shocked. Fang Lingqian told him before that there was someone who could help him integrate the Xia realm pearl, but he didn't expect to meet under such circumstances. Could it be that he wanted to fuse with the real-world pearl so much that he had such a strange dream? Minister Yan thought to himself. Where is this place? Minister Yan asked curiously, looked around, and asked alertly, who are you? This is in your dream, and it is also in my world. I am the master here, and this is also the place where we meet. Xiaopingan said, having already stepped down from the throne and walked towards Minister Yan past. Minister Yan was exposed to a lot of weird things. When he saw Xiaopingan walking towards him, he instinctively wanted to retreat. But just when he wanted to move, he found that his body was frozen and couldn't move at all. He wanted to wake up, but found that my thinking at the moment was extremely clear, and I couldn't leave this dream at all. Don't worry, don't be frightened, you won't be hurt at all. While Minister Yan was struggling and looking slightly frightened in his eyes, Xiaopingan had already raised his hand, with a glowing bead on his hand, and was pointing towards Minister Yan, touched the top of his head and said, my child, this is my blessing and initiation to you. I am very satisfied with your tribute. After you wake up, you can integrate the Xia realm pearl and you will not encounter any obstacles. If you reveal my secret, then this will be the last time you see me in your dream. Ah! Minister Yan yelled, woke up suddenly, sat up from the bed, and gasped for air. Minister Yan touched the top of his head. The feeling as if a cold current was poured from the top of his head was still there. He checked his body and the secret mandala and found that there were no problems. Then he loosened his hair. Take a breath. Everything in the dream just now was too real. Thinking of that strange dream and the master of the mysterious palace who blessed him in the dream, Minister Yan thought for a moment and took out his real word boundary pearl. His face looked uncertain and he squinted. He stared at the world bead in his hand for a long time, and finally his face suddenly became firm and he entered the training room. Within 5 minutes, Minister Yan came out of the training room with a look of ecstasy and shock. Minister Yan walked around the room excitedly for several times. Because he was too shocked, his mind was in chaos. At this time, Minister Yan's mind was filled with the palace in the dream that was as gorgeous as a heavenly palace and the palace that appeared like an emperor. The person in his dream. What kind of secret method is this, so powerful that it can actually invade other people's dreams and help people fuse the world beads in their dreams? Minister Yan realized that what he had just experienced was subversive to any summoner and was also an unimaginable secret. After walking around the room several times and looking at the current time, Minister Yan picked up the confidential phone in the room and dialed the number of Fang Linqian's room. After just a few seconds, the call was connected. "Minister Yan, what's going on?" Fang Lingqian asked on the phone. Minister Yan took a deep breath and tried to keep his tone calm. "I just had a strange dream. After that dream, my real speech world pearl has been successfully fused. Thank you." Fang Lingqian on the other side of the phone didn't sound surprised at all. She just said calmly, "You're welcome, this is also my promise to you before." From Fang Lingqian's tone, Minister Yan also heard something. "Have you ever had a dream like that?" "Yes." "How do I contact that person?" "I can't take the initiative to contact him. When that person wants to contact you, he will appear in your dream and tell you where to put the boundary pearl. I am not too clear about other situations, and you put the boundary beads there will also disappear quietly." "Okay, I understand." Minister Yan hung up the phone. After Minister Yan hung up the phone, he continued to walk around the room several times with his hands behind his back. The look on his face was a bit contradictory, with a frown and some hesitation in his eyes. He was reporting this important situation to the order committee and being conservative as he should be. After struggling and thinking about the secret for a long time, finally, the conflicting and struggling expression on his face was relieved. He took a long breath and murmured to himself, "This matter has nothing to do with the mission. It is my private matter. As long as the private matter is not if it affects the mission, there is no need to report it to the order committee." Well, that's it, everyone has secrets. As he said this, what Minister Yan was thinking in his heart was, if I have other boundary beads that are difficult to fuse next time, I don't know. In the spirit world, after sending away Minister Yan, Xiaopinggan did not leave the palace he built with his mind. In the palace, he used spirit-seeking skills to search the sky for a while. Then he once again locked onto a bright star spirit from the sky south of Paris, and pulled the star spirit directly into the palace, revealing it out of human form. A young man in his 20s, full of heaven, handsome but with a somewhat cynical expression appeared in the palace. He looked at everything in the palace with a look of astonishment and said, I'll go. Shen Nanfei still has such strange dreams. Is this a heavenly palace? Why don't I see any fairies? There are no heavenly soldiers or generals. Hey, are there any fairies? The spirit of the man named Shen Nanfei who appeared in the palace, the body actually shouted loudly, looking around, as if he was shocked by everything in the palace. If there is a fairy, come out quickly and let me take a look. If you look good, I will ask the plastic surgery hospital at home to take care of you when I wake up. A few of them come out like this to look eye-catching. The young man who appeared in the dream actually shouted in the palace, wanting to see the fairy. For a moment, he seemed not to notice Xiaopinggan sitting on the throne. Xiaopinggan also looked at this guy speechlessly. As expected, all funny friends are funny. This guy is the super tycoon that Li Yunzhou mentioned. Looking at this guy's appearance, there is indeed a reason why he hangs out with Li Yunzhou. Ahem. Xiaopinggan coughed twice, and the sound echoed throughout the palace, drowning out Shen Nanfei's shouts. At this time, Shen Nanfei seemed to have suddenly discovered Xiaopinggan sitting on the throne. He was startled and then pointed at Xiaopinggan and laughed. Ha 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 ha, who are you? The clothes you are wearing are so strange, and you are actually wearing a mask. Are you an opera singer? I actually dreamed that there are opera singers in the palace of heaven. Ha ha ha, it's so funny. Come on, let me sing a piece for you. If you sing well, you will be rewarded. Hey, there is also your throne. It looks good. It's even more exaggerated than the one my grandpa collected. I'll sit down and give it a try. Ha ha ha, it's so interesting. Come on. Shen Nanfei said, and actually ran towards Xiaoping'an, wanting to try the taste of the throne in the palace. Xiaoping'an was too lazy to talk nonsense with this guy anymore, so he stopped the guy directly. With a wave of his hand, the laughing Shen Nanfei's mouth was completely closed like a zipper, and he couldn't say a word. At this time, Shen Nanfei's face showed a look of horror. Something seemed wrong. This was not like a dream he had experienced before. Xiaoping'an, who walked up to Shen Nanfei, put his hand on Shen Nanfei's head. My child, this is my blessing and initiation to you. I am very satisfied with your tribute. After you wake up, you can integrate the divine skill world zoo, you will not encounter any obstacles again. If you reveal my secret, then this will be the last time you see me in your dream. But just now, you were too noisy. Noise is not allowed in this palace, so, you must also accept my punishment. After completing the initiation, Xiaoping'an waved his hand, and Shen Nanfei's star spirit flew out of the palace and returned to the sky, but Shen Nanfei did not wake up from his dream. In his dream, Shen Nanfei suddenly found himself standing on the theater stage, unable to move. Then, under the entire stage, there were all kinds of female zombies. Thousands of zombies were surrounding him, dripping with nausea. With their saliva and long tongues hanging out, they started to line up and come to the stage to kiss him. Ah, don't come over, don't come over. A few seconds later, the pale Shen Nanfei screamed in his dream, unable to wake up, and began to immerse himself in nightmare mode, enjoying the treatment that Li Yunzhou once enjoyed. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 562. Young Master, I have just asked the children in the family to prepare. Don't neglect it. Tomorrow afternoon, the housekeeper of Teifu 11's family will come to our house to pick a son-in-law. Take a look at the disciples of the Wang family. I heard that Teifu 11 has a daughter named 11 Qian, who is 28 years old. She has good looks, is not yet married, and is well educated and well educated. She is the apple of Teifu 11's eye. The children of the 11 family call her the fairy among women. Her talent and appearance are all chosen at the moment. As soon as Xiaoping'an opened his eyes, he saw a man with a short beard who looked like a butler speaking slightly excitedly in front of him. This is the divine world bead of Dongbed Kui son-in-law. This world bead was given to Fang Lingshan by Fang Lingqian, and by Fang Lingshan to Xiaoping'an. The person who provided this boundary bead was Minister Yan. Minister Yan's other boundary bead, Xiaoping'an had already fused with it, but Fang Lingqian had not fused it, so he gave it to Fang Lingqian. Xiaoping'an had just completed the initiation for Minister Yan and Shen Nanfei in his dream. As soon as he came out of the spirit world, Xiaoping'an began to integrate the world bead of divine power he had just obtained. Wang Zizi's father, Wang Dao, was the prime minister, and 11 Jian was the Teifu. He was an official and a minister, guarded Jingkao, and was an important minister in the court. This marriage between Wang and 11's family was a very obvious political marriage, so as the royal family of Lanja, the children, no matter who the 11 family likes, can only unconditionally obey the interests of the family, and this marriage is not bad. With 11 Jian's father-in-law and backer, he can really go sideways. Director Wang also solemnly ordered to go ahead and notify the Wang family disciples one day in advance to prepare for the selection of son-in-law tomorrow. After the Lanja Wang family's incident in Wangdun, the Wang family's descendants, including Wang Zizi's generation, had 20 or 30 people, who could be fully chosen by the 11 family's housekeeper, and Director Wang agreed to whomever he liked. Later facts proved that the marriage between the two families was really necessary and a good thing for the Wang family. Later, Yu Liang wanted to target the Wang family, but in the end it was 11 Jian who saved the Wang family from another disaster. In the past 2 days, after the corpse attack in the cemetery in the 14th arrondissement, the situation in Paris was very tense. There were all kinds of rumors. Rumors of zombie massacres were once very rampant. Some Paris citizens even fled the city and did not dare to continue. Stay in the city. Emily has been busy until late these past 2 days and doesn't come home until late every day. There was no news from the People's Front, but Xiaoping'an knew who Mr. Curie met and what he did every day. The God of Fortune boy had nothing to do in the past 2 days, so he wandered around outside. If nothing happened, he would hang around Mr. Curie. Mr. Curie is negotiating with other major forces in Paris and the government, preparing to join forces to solve the current crisis in Paris. Xiaoping'an seemed to be idle in the villa, but in fact he was also very busy. During the day, he refined formation discs and rune bullets in the villa, and studied mechanism techniques. At night, he went to the spirit world to hunt nightmare insects, collect soul power, practice and improve his pastoral skills, and lived a fulfilling life. It's also very relaxing. After Fang Lingshan received Fang Linqian's entrustment, in order to avoid people's suspicion that the person who finally initiated Minister Yan was in Paris, she took the G bead and waited for 3 days before contacting Xiaoping'an. In her dream, Li told Xiaoping'an about this. Li Yunzhou's speed is also very fast. That guy Shen Nanfei took a private plane to Orleans yesterday, met with Li Yunzhou, and handed the things to Li Yunzhou. That guy Li Yunzhou's reputation in the hearts of his wealthy friends is still good. He didn't expect that Li Yunzhou would want to deceive him for such a small thing and then disappear, so he gave the reward readily. So today, Xiaoping'an actually received 3 world beads and a reward of 200 million yuan at once, which is staggering. Xiaoping'an finally understood why the Holy Master was so awesome. It was really not easy for a Holy Master who mastered the ability to make money. It was faster than bandits making money through robbery. He just gave Minister Yan the initiation in his dream. Zheng Ziyi killed pigs and gave him money. Li Yunzhou's rich friend learned the 7-step process of becoming a poetry world bead. In just a few minutes, he got 3 world beads and 200 million banknotes. Sure enough, when they heard that the housekeeper of the 11 Jian family would come to the Wang family to pick a son-in-law tomorrow, the young Wang family members were all excited that night, just like the young people of later generations preparing for a blind date. They were bathing and dressing up one by one, and the whole Wang family was noisy. It is very simple to fuse this pearl of the emperor's son-in-law. After Xiaoping'an learned the news, he didn't do anything. He just read in the study. There were many authentic calligraphy of Wang Zizi in the study. Xiaoping'an felt like he had found a treasure, so he took it. Wang Zizi was practicing calligraphy with his copybook, but he didn't make much preparation. Some people in later generations thought that the reason why Wang 11 became the son-in-law of the 11 family and attracted the attention of the housekeeper of the 11 family was because he was unrestrained and uninhibited, deliberately showing off his behavior when others came to choose a son-in-law, and showing that he was different. People who thought this way really regarded the emperor of the Eastern Jin dynasty as the son-in-law of the 11 family. These wealthy families think too simply. It can be said that, not to mention that Wang Zizi was just lying on the bed with his belly exposed and eating, even if Wang Zizi was squatting in the hut and defecating, the housekeeper of the 11 family would definitely choose Wang Zizi. For no other reason than 11 Jian sent him to his daughter. The housekeeper who chooses his son-in-law only knows how to read faces. 11 Jian was originally one of the disciples of Zheng Xian, a master of Confucian classics. He was proficient in the 5 classics and was good at predicting good and bad luck. He would not marry his daughter to just anyone. The next day, afternoon, the other Wang family children gathered neatly in the study and courtyard of the east courtyard, waiting for 11 Jian's housekeeper to come and choose. Xiaoping'an did not go to the courtyard, but went directly to the Wang family in the east courtyard. In the room where the disciple usually rested, He lay on the bed, opened his clothes, and ate, with an expression as if he was just waiting to die and didn't care. If he didn't want to waste this magical world bead, Xiaopinggan would really like to try whether he would be selected by 11 Jian's people while squatting in the hut. When the time was almost up, Xiaopinggan heard the noise in the yard outside suddenly quieted down, and he knew that the people from the 11 mansion had arrived, and they were probably picking people in the yard outside. After waiting for a while, Xiaopinggan heard the voice of the palace steward from the courtyard outside. "Where is Master Yi? Why didn't Master Yi come? Where is he?" 2 minutes later, footsteps sounded outside the door to the room was pushed open, and a middle-aged man with bright eyes and a somewhat unfamiliar face walked into the room and saw Xiaopinggan. The butler of the palace had been looking anxiously behind the middle-aged man, winking at Xiaopinggan repeatedly. Xiaopinggan acted as if he hadn't seen him, and still lay back and ate calmly. The middle-aged man looked at Xiaopinggan carefully, smiled slightly, nodded slightly to the housekeeper of the palace, and then left. After leaving the room, Xiaopinggan heard the voice of 11 Mansion's housekeeper coming from outside, who was the young master who was lying on the bed eating just now. That is the son of Daniang Yin Wankuang, Wang Zizi, whose courtesy name is Yishao. The world of Jizu suddenly shattered. Xiaopinggan in the secret room opened his eyes and looked at the 2 remaining world beads. Of the 2 remaining world beads, one was a divine power world bead to scare the monkeys, and the other was an auxiliary magic world bead. Suspended beam stabbing buttocks, the latter magic world bead, after being used, can make the summoner feel like a chicken blood, bursting out a lot of physical potential in a short period of time, and can also resist the effects of some negative magic spells. The next 2 world beads, Xiaopinggan, were quickly integrated. After fusing these 3 world beads, the upper limit of Xiaopinggan's secret mandala's divine power has become 8,311 points, one step closer to the 7 Suns realm. 2 days later, a string of yellow balloons finally rose from the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Mr. Curie finally got enough world beads and invited Xiaopinggan to meet. In the office of Chez Terroir restaurant, when Xiaopinggan came in, 6 or 7 people were already sitting in the office. In addition to Mr. Curie, the heads of several major organizations in Paris are here at the moment. There is also a man wearing a black suit, short, fat, bald, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, who is a representative of the French government. As soon as Xiaopinggan walked into the room, Mr. Curie was the first to stand up. When everyone else saw Mr. Curie standing up, they all stood up too, very respectfully. "Everyone, I would like to solemnly introduce to you that this is Mr. Luowan. He destroyed the Doomsday Gang before and killed a large number of demon rats underground. He found the Doomsday Gang's zombie laboratory and those biochemical weapons. in the past few days. The person who eliminated the corpses in the 4th District Cemetery was Mr. Rohn." Mr. Curie paused here. "Mr. Rohn has saved Paris several times. I believe that Mr. Rohn will also be able to save Paris from crisis this time. Get rescued from it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 563. Listening to Mr. Curie's praise, Xiaopinggan did not show any trace of pride on his face. Instead, he frowned lightly, his eyes were deep, and his face was solemn. "To be honest, I personally don't have that much ability. All of you here are the people who decide the fate of Paris also have many sources of information, so I can tell you honestly that the last time we entered the underground tunnels and cleared out the demon rats, the Order Committee and the Dragon Group summoners who participated in the operation, the cemetery corpse transformed, I was the one who suppressed the zombies together with them. It is absolutely impossible for me to complete these arduous tasks by myself. Several people in the room looked at each other. They knew some of the news before, but they didn't expect Luoan to be so honest. In most cases, those summoners who want to negotiate terms will at this time. Bragging about his abilities, Mr. Luoan is just the opposite. Xiaopingan sneered at the thoughts of these people. If he could complete these dangerous tasks by himself, how could he ask for more boundary beads from everyone? Therefore, in order to complete the task of entering the catacombs, I need to find a team to work together. For teamwork, the boundary beads are indispensable. Mr. Luoan is humble. Mr. Curie introduced everyone in the room to Xiaopingan. This is Mr. Wenger, the government representative, this is Professor Fernand, the chairman of the Paris Citizens League, and this is the president of the Paris Citizens League Renault, the leader of the guard. Mr. Curie introduced all the important people in the room to Xiaopingan. After everyone got to know each other, they sat down together and started discussing business. The first one to speak was Wenger, who represented the French government. He pushed up his glasses and looked at Xiaopingan with shrewd eyes. Mr. Luoan, I want to know how confident you are that you can eliminate the problem when you enter the catacombs this time. This crisis. Sorry, Mr. Wenger, we don't have any confidence. Xiaopingan's decisive words made everyone present look at each other in shock. Xiaopingan spread his hands and continued, Mr. Wenger, Bourget Monoli is the summoner you selected to guard Paris. This man is so powerful that I don't need to say more. You know better. It is possible that he is still hiding his own strength. There are quite a few summoners who gathered at Chateau Boulogne before, and these may only be part of the strength of the Devil's Eye. Hundreds of them already exist in the catacombs of Paris. Years ago, there were 6 million corpses inside. Who knows how many arrangements the Devil's Eye summoners have made in the past few hundred years. The Paris catacombs have now become one of the most dangerous places in the world. You can ask any summoner to come faced with this situation, I dare not tell you that I am even remotely sure. Xiaopingan's eyes looked around, his eyes were lowered, his face was solemn, his tone suddenly became heavier, and he began to turn into a shadow emperor. Gentlemen, when you ask me how sure I am, you have to know that in the catacombs of Paris, a mage with the Devil's Eye who can cause corpse transformation. The nuclear material obtained by the Devil's Eye is most likely to prepare to summon the Bone Monarch in the catacombs and to repeat the Montbinet incident in Paris. Anyone who enters will be it is possible to face more than 6 million enemies and a group of Demon Eye summoners. Whether you can send a legion in and come out alive is unknown. So, don't ask me if I am sure. If anyone faces this situation you are still sure, you can go find him. There was no talking in the room, and a group of people looked at each other. Mr. Wenger also cleared his throat. Mr. Luoan, we know that the underground tombs are dangerous, but we will have to pay a huge price for this operation. How can you give us confidence and a little guarantee? My guarantee is that if this operation does not succeed or achieve the expected results, if the difficulties and dangers we encounter in the catacombs are beyond the capabilities of our team and we are unable to do anything, we will terminate the operation and evacuate the catacombs and return to the catacombs. 80% of the world beads, and the remaining 20% are for the risks we bear and the intelligence fees we collect. We will tell you what the specific situation in the underground tomb is like, and why we is this enough of a guarantee that if you withdraw, you will not be completely kept in the dark. Everyone in the room looked at each other, and after a few seconds of silence, they all nodded. Such a guarantee showed Luoan's sincerity, which was beyond their expectations. Xiaopingan's voice changed, but I also have one request, that is, you must pay all the remuneration before the mission begins. Mr. Luoan, can we pay half when the mission starts, and then pay the other half when the mission is completed? Professor Fernando asked. Xiaopingan shook his head and said in a very firm tone, I have given you a guarantee, but without the G-bead, I cannot summon the team involved in the operation, so the G-bead must be paid in full before the action. This is unacceptable. Discuss, If you don't agree, this negotiation will end here. Can you find someone else to complete this task? Looking for someone else? It's impossible to find it, not to mention whether it's time or not. Even if we can find someone, can the person who can come have Luoan's strength and Luoan's credibility? Can everyone afford the asking price? More importantly, the local snakes in Paris are very wary of the government's action team stationed in Paris. At the same time, the summoners from the government do not want to carry out such a dangerous mission in a place where logistical support cannot be guaranteed. In the past few days, Mr. Curie and others have negotiated many times with Wenger, who represents the government, and discussed various options and candidates. However, there are many difficult to coordinate issues and details that cannot satisfy everyone. In the end, both parties found that apart from Mr. Rohan, there were not many people they could rely on in Paris at this time, and there were even fewer options to solve the problem. I wonder how many boundary beads Mr. Luoan's team needs, Mr. Curie finally said. Our team has 6 people, and they are all very strong, so the minimum number of boundary beads we need is 60, Xiaopingan said loudly. He already knew what the bottom line of Wenger and others was. Everyone in the room was stunned for a moment, and Wenger almost jumped up. Mr. Luoan, your asking price is too high. We don't have so many world beads. How many world beads can you provide? Wenger looked at Xiaopingan and gritted his teeth. The most we can provide is 25 boundary beads. Xiaopingan smiled and stood up. Then I wish you good luck. I will leave Paris today. Things in Paris will have nothing to do with me in the future. Mr. Luoan, we can discuss the number of world beads. Mr. Curie quickly stood up and stopped Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan glared at Wenger. His tone was already very unhappy. Do you know that there may be more than 20 magicians of the Devil's Eye around Barget Manuri? Take out these more than 20 world beads. Are you asking us to rush to a place where there are more than 6 million skeletons that may undergo corpse transformation to kill them all? A mage with a Devil's Eye is worth one of your world beads. The price you are offering is too outrageous. Not only is it you look down on the eye of the devil, and you look down on me and my friends. The millions of people in Paris and your capital are worth 25 world pearls in your hearts. Ahem, this can be discussed. Wenger looked at the eyes of the people around him and said with a little embarrassment. Don't waste my time. If you want to bargain for a small business, you can find someone else. The minimum reward that I and the action team I hired can accept for this mission is 60 boundary beads. I will give you 5 minutes to discuss it. Discussion, if it doesn't work, then today's meeting ends here. After Xiaopingan finished speaking, he glanced at his watch and started counting. Less than 5 minutes. After a lot of bargaining and debate, the final result came out. Local gangsters and government representatives in Paris paid Xiaopingan and his team a total of 40 boundary beads and 260 million euros in remuneration, allowing Xiaopingan and his team to enter the catacombs to perform the task. If the task could not be completed, Xiaopingan and the others would return it. 80% of the reward, and the sign of mission completion is to find those nuclear materials and stop the Evil Eye's conspiracy in the catacombs. The money and beads were collected by all parties involved in the negotiations, with the French government bearing the bulk of it. Before negotiating with Xiaopingan, Wenger and others' final bottom line was 40 boundary beads and 300 million euros. The conditions Xiaopingan accepted were just above their bottom line. When leaving the restaurant, Xiaopingan already carried 40 world beads and a cashier's check from the European Central Bank for 260 million euros. Xiaopingan solemnly promised that within 48 hours he and the team he convened would enter the Paris catacombs and start the operation to save Paris. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 564. Ha ha ha. As soon as Emily returned home, she heard a burst of wild laughter coming from the living room that made her skin crawl. The laughter made Emily shiver. Taking the key, She opened the door and entered the living room. Emily saw her teacher Xuanhuan sitting on the sofa in the living room with his legs crossed, looking particularly relaxed, holding a bead that flashed yellow light in his hand. Like a world pearl, it is laughing. "Teacher, is there anything funny?" Emily asked as she walked over. "Ahem, it's nothing, I just suddenly remembered something funny." Xiaopinghan smiled and put away his smile, looking at Emily. "Why did you come back so early today? It's been a bit hard these days. The captain saw that I'm too tired these days. He asked me to finish work on time today and have a day off tomorrow." "Teacher, you haven't had dinner yet." Emily glanced at the thing in Xiaopinghan's hand. It should be the boundary bead, but she has never seen that boundary bead before. There seems to be a villain in the boundary bead, and it can move. It's very interesting. Emily didn't look at it more, just took one look at it and took back her own. "Look." "Well, not yet." Xiaopinghan shook his head, he had just come back. "That's just right." Emily laughed and walked towards her bedroom. "Wait for me to change my clothes and I'll cook tonight. I just learned how to cook rice and diced chicken. I can do it tonight. Show it to the teacher." Watching Emily go about her business, Xiaopinghan looked at the world bead in his hand and laughed. "This world bead is the Earth Escape skill world bead." Xiaopinghan also didn't expect that he would get the second Earth Escape world bead so quickly. This Earth Escape world bead was one of the 40 world beads. Among the 40 world beads he just got, in addition to this Earth Escape world bead, there are 7 other world beads that he can fuse with, 5 Divine Power world beads, 2 Magic world beads. The other 32 world beads have been fused by him. Although he can't use them for the time being, he can keep them and be useful in the future. He can give them away or exchange world beads with others. So the harvest this time was huge. Not to mention the hundreds of millions of euros in funds, he easily gained 8 more world beads that could be fused again. By the time we finish fusing these world beads, we should be in the 7 Yang realm soon. A smile appeared on Xiaopinghan's face. After returning home, Emily quickly came to the kitchen and started cooking. An hour later, Emily's prepared meal was served. Looking at the half-cooked rice, Emily was very embarrassed and said with a slight embarrassment, "Teacher, I put a little more water in it and it's already ruined. How about I cook it again, once?" "Haha, it doesn't matter, as long as the rice is cooked." Xiaopinghan comforted with a smile, "At least you fried the diced chicken well. Like this rice, add more water, and the remaining rice will be used tomorrow. In the morning, you can boil it with some things, such as peanuts, preserved fruits, dried meat, etc., and add a little more water, just like you would make soup, and it can be turned into porridge, which can be used as breakfast without being cooked. Rice can also be treated this way." Emily blinked. "Ah, you can do this with both overcooked and overcooked rice, just like making Provence vegetable soup." "Of course. Saving food is a good habit for us." Xiaopinghan glanced at Emily and said suddenly, "Get ready tonight, go to bed early, and try to restore your body to its best tomorrow. Status, you can fuse the world pearl tomorrow." "Ah, tomorrow." Emily, who was serving rice, shook her hands and suddenly became excited. "Teacher, do you mean tomorrow? I can fuse the world beads and become a summoner tomorrow." "Yes." After eating, Xiaopinghan returned to the secret room, took out the fusionable boundary beads, spread them out in front of himself, rubbed his hands excitedly, and prepared for fusion. The 5 divine power world beads are respectively Gongsui, Ximenbao, Chenjiyan, Hanidong and Guozi Sunzi. As for the 3 magic world beads, except for the Earth Escape technique, the other 1 magic world bead has the words golden shoes on it, and the other world bead has Zhangjuling presents the mirror on it. The last 2 world beads, the golden shoes and Zhangjuling presents the mirror, they are all black box world beads, and no one on earth has ever fused them. Looking at these world beads, Xiaopinggan felt like an emperor was turning over cards. It was too luxurious. Let's fuse you first. Xiaopinggan picked up the rat dung in honey boundary bead and started dripping blood. After a moment, Xiaopinggan was surrounded by a cocoon of light. When Xiaopinggan opened his eyes, he found that he was in a garden. In front of him, there was a plum tree with gratifying growth. The tree was covered with plums. He was holding chopsticks in one hand to pick out honey from a jar. The other hand held a big, yellow plum. Judging from his thin arms and legs, he was clearly an 11 or 12-year-old boy. Several eunuchs and guards stood beside him, and a young eunuch bowed his waist, holding a tray with honey, and stood respectfully aside. "Your Majesty, these plums are too sour. They just need to be dipped in honey to make them taste better." An old eunuch holding a whisk said kindly beside him. Looking at the scene in front of him, Xiaopinggan said in his heart, it was indeed Sun Liang. Xiaopinggan looked at the jar containing honey again, and picked it with chopsticks. A few black mouse droppings emerged from the honey, which was immediately off-putting. Xiaopinggan picked out 2 pieces of mouse droppings with chopsticks, put them on the tray, and asked the person next to him, "Why is there mouse droppings in this honey?" Seeing the emperor picking out mouse droppings from the honey he was about to eat, the faces of the eunuchs next to him also changed drastically. The eunuch holding the tray was almost stunned. He was dumbfounded and quickly knelt down in front of Xiaopinggan. "Your Majesty, I really don't know why there is rat droppings in this honey jar. I am just responsible for delivering this honey. This honey is usually managed by the Tibetan officials in the palace. You bastard, you are tired of living. Your Majesty dares to make the food he eats dirty. You don't even know the rules in the palace. Go and beat the Tibetan official to death." The old eunuch next to him was furious and directly ordered the one next to him. "Internal officials are going to deal with that Tibetan official." "Wait a minute," Xiaopinggan said calmly, "to punish without teaching is cruelty. Call the Tibetan officials first and ask." "Yes." A few minutes later, the Tibetan official from the palace came. The Tibetan official, who was also a eunuch, saw the emperor eating rat droppings in the honey he had stored. The Tibetan official was so frightened that he almost cried and fell to his knees. On the ground, he kowtowed quickly, "Your Majesty, I really don't know. This honey has always been in good condition in the warehouse. I inspect it every day, and there is nothing wrong." "Oh, tell me, where did this rat shit come from?" Xiaopinggan asked. I deserve death, but I really don't know," the Tibetan official said with a pale face and trembling. The little eunuch who was taking the honey next to him suddenly interrupted at this time, "Your Majesty, he must have been lazy and failed to take care of the things in the storehouse. That's why the mice ate the honey and got all the mouse droppings into the honey. It was spoiled His Majesty's interest. This is disrespectful." Xiaopinggan smiled slightly, pointed at the little eunuch who interrupted, and asked the Tibetan official, "What has this person asked you for?" "To be honest." The eyes of the Tibetan official who was kneeling on the ground lit up, and he suddenly remembered something. "Your Majesty, I remembered it. I am in charge of the Tibetan warehouse. This person often comes to me to ask for all kinds of food. My duties are not give it to him, he must have a grudge and take the opportunity to frame me." The little eunuch's face changed drastically. "Your Majesty, the Tibetan official slandered me. I never asked him for food. He falsely accused a good person and wanted to excuse himself." The Tibetan official and the little eunuch started arguing directly in front of Xiaopinggan. The two of them each had their own reasons, and even the old eunuch next to him was embarrassed. He didn't know which of them was right and who should be punished. "Your Majesty, what do you think we should do now?" the old eunuch asked. "What's so difficult about this? You put out a piece of rat droppings and let me take a look. If this piece of rat droppings had fallen into the honey before in the warehouse, the inside of the rat droppings must be as wet as the outside. If this rat droppings were just thrown in, Soon after, the inside of the rat droppings will be dry. The old eunuch took a piece of rat droppings with his hands and broke it open. He saw that the inside of the rat droppings was indeed dry and completely different from the outside. "Your Majesty, please forgive me, I was wrong." The face of the little eunuch who had just been carrying the honey pot suddenly changed, and he knelt down in front of Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan was too lazy to say anything. He just waved his hand, and the guard next to him rushed up and dragged the scared and paralyzed little eunuch away. He asked for things from the treasury, harmed others with rat droppings, and deceived the emperor. He was so evil, how could he be allowed to stay? He should be killed according to the law. The world of Jizu shattered in the blink of an eye. Xiaopingan opened his eyes in the secret room. It only took 2 minutes to fuse this world bead, which increased the upper limit of divine power by 10 points. Xiaopingan then picked up Gong Sui's world bead and started to fuse it. Gong Sui was an official in the Western Han Dynasty and served as the governor of Bohai. He also left many stories in history, but I don't know what the story is in this world pearl. These divine power world beads were not difficult for Xiaopingan. In less than an hour, all 5 divine power world beads were integrated. Then Xiaopingan picked up the golden shoe boundary bead and began to fuse it. If Xiaopingan expected that this boundary bead was correct, it should tell the story of Qi Jinggong. The man who built himself a pair of the most expensive and luxurious gold shoes in history can be said to be the originator of the shoe-loving party. It's just that the gold shoes are beautiful and luxurious, but they are not very comfortable to wear on the feet, especially in the winter. In the end, they were ridiculed by Yan Zi. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 565. 5 days later, heavy rain enveloped Paris again. At the entrance to the catacombs in the 14th arrondissement of Paris, amid the flying raindrops, there was even more mist, and the atmosphere was solemn. After the corpse transformation in the cemetery, the entrance to the underground tombs here, as well as the nearby road area within a kilometer, have been blocked. There were only a few people coming near the cemetery. In addition, there are now rumors circulating in Paris that the catacombs will transform into corpses, and millions of skeletal warriors will be summoned by the eyes of the devil. Not to mention that within a kilometer of the cemetery, there were not many people to be seen within 2,000 meters, and those who came were frightened. At the intersection entering this area, armed personnel from the Popular Front, the Civic Alliance, and the Paris Guards had set up fortifications with barbed wire, triangular steel frames, and sandbags on the street, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. In the past few days, this place has been under tremendous pressure and attention, and no one dares to take it lightly. The armed personnel stationed here are on duty 24 hours a day, and can only rest in shifts, paying close attention to every move in the underground tomb. Behind the fortifications, the muzzles of black holes and the firepower of various weapons were pointed at the streets and roads at the entrance to the catacombs. Self-propelled artillery and tanks were coming. "Boys, cheer up, our families are behind us, the people of Paris are watching us, the watchtowers should pay attention." Behind a road guarded by the Paris Guards, a man wearing a raincoat, a big soldier with a white beard wearing a steel helmet was inspecting the defense facilities on the street in the rain, loudly encouraging the armed personnel stationed here, "Babu, don't let the ammunition boxes soak in the water." "Sir, I heard that a team of summoners have already entered." "Will the corpse transformation happen again?" a young man in the machine gun position asked quietly. "I don't know either. The horror of the catacombs may be beyond your imagination." The officer stopped behind the barbed wire fence, picked up the telescope, and looked at the catacombs in the distance. "Sir, I heard that you once led a team into the catacombs to hunt down demon rats." "What was it like inside the catacombs?" someone else asked curiously. "The 2 kilometers of ossuary hall that you see open to tourists are clean and tidy, which will make you think that other places in the tomb are like that. In fact, The ossuary hall is the only part of the catacombs that has been sorted out and allows living people to enter. Where you look, in other parts of the catacombs, it's like hell, a hell filled with millions of skeletons that haven't been cleaned for hundreds of years. There was an expression of lingering fear on the officer's face. Believe me, in that place, even if the demon rats don't want to stay for a second longer, they will have nightmares. If you walk in there for a long time, you will think that you are also a skeleton, walking in hell. Among them, the strongest and bravest soldiers who were on missions with us at that time. After coming out of it, many of them had to undergo psychological treatment for half a year before they gradually returned to normal. Some people became emotional when they saw bones when they returned home. Out of control, I now never want to eat anything with bones or see any squirming mollusks. There was a hint of fear on the faces of the people around them when they heard this. Sir, there seems to be something going on at the exit of the catacombs. I seem to see fire flying out of the catacombs. The lookout suddenly shouted from the watchtower. This shout passed through the rain curtain, making everyone behind the defense line suddenly tremble. The officer who just spoke immediately ran to the watchtower and used the telescope on the watchtower to focus on the exit defense line of the catacombs. A thick curtain of rain obscured the telescope's view, and everything was blurry. The officer's eyes widened and he observed carefully. Sudden. The officer also saw that in a flash of fire, countless broken bones sprayed out from the entrance to the catacombs. Someone is fighting in the tomb passage, and that fire should be the summoner. The officer suddenly shook his head and immediately shouted at the top of his lungs, "Get ready to fight." The sound of preparing for battle immediately alerted everyone around. In the heavy rain, all the guards rushed behind the defense line, holding weapons and looking nervously into the distance. Many people prayed in their hearts. Don't let them see white bones walking out of the rain. That would be too scary. The officer continued to observe the entrance and exit of the catacombs in the distance with his binoculars. Suddenly, his heart trembled. He saw humanoid bones rushing out of the catacombs, and then summoned creatures chased out from inside, intercepted those humanoid bones. Near the exit of the catacombs, there seemed to be a very fierce battle going on inside the catacombs. After a moment, the water within 100 meters around the tomb suddenly condensed into ice, and the raindrops turned into hail and fell from the sky. All the bones near the entrance and exit of the underground tomb turned to ashes. Then the entire ground began to tremble slightly. A few seconds later, there was a bang. There was an earth-shaking loud noise, flames soaring into the sky, and a violent explosion happened right at the entrance. Almost half of Paris heard the violent explosion. All the armed personnel stationed in various places in the 14th district were also alerted. The huge explosion and roar made the puddles on the ground tremble. As for the location of the explosion, near the entrance of the underground tomb, it was beyond recognition. Skeletons, hail, fire, flying stones, and soil fragments, and gushing fire from the skeletal fragments were thrown out from the entrance of the underground tomb, and the furthest ones fell 500 to 600 meters away, falling like rain. The various armed forces in Paris stationed near the cemetery were stunned by the changes that occurred near the entrance to the catacombs. Others also discovered some of the changes just now. It seems that someone is fighting in the catacombs. And almost at the same time, in the intelligence center of the Order Committee's stronghold, the alarm in the intelligence center suddenly came to mind. China's Weasel-5 and Weasel-6 radiation detection satellites have captured strong radiation signals near the exit of the catacombs in District 14. Just now, the radiation signals disappeared in a flash, but to the satellites, they were already enough. Someone brought the nuclear materials out of the ground. Minister Yan's face was as steely as he stared at the electronic screen that had turned red, and directly ordered, "Everyone, move out immediately." The summoners in the Order Committee stronghold came out in full force. In the heavy rain, the roaring military SUV rushed out of the stronghold, speeding down the street and rushing towards the cemetery in the 14th district. After the violent explosions and commotion subsided, and after more than 10 minutes, everything became quiet. The armed forces of various factions in Paris stationed near the cemetery in the 14th arrondissement each sent a reconnaissance team to investigate in the rain. Look what happened. When the reconnaissance teams arrived near the entrance and exit of the underground tomb, they found that the exit of the underground tomb had been blown open by an explosion. A huge crack of more than 30 meters opened in the entire section of the tomb. The entire ground turned into a big pit with everywhere on the ground. They are all broken bones, and some things seem to be pieces of human flesh and blood and body fragments. The remains of the mage's robe can also be seen on those fragments. There seems to be summoners fighting here. The scene was so tragic that it made people tremble in their hearts. The huge gap in the dark underground tomb was right in front of everyone's eyes. The underground tomb was full of messy bones, like a passage leading to the abyss. Even several teams did not have the courage to enter. At this moment, a figure walked out of the passage of the catacombs. An armed member from the Popular Front saw the figure coming out of the catacombs. He became nervous and opened fire on the figure with the assault rifle in his hand. With this firing, members of other teams also fired at the black figure coming out of the catacombs. The bullets fired by everyone seemed to be of no use to the black figure. A group of team members, with their hearts trembling, almost wanted to run away with their legs. The figure of the black shadow looked a little tired. Finally, Xiaopingan came out of the tomb passage. At this moment, Xiaopingan's face was a little pale, his body was tired, and his clothes were in tatters, as if he had been through a big battle. A water shield protects Xiaopingan's body. In front of the water shield are orange bullets floating in the water. The bullets fired by the assault rifle are like scratching an itch for the water shield. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 566. Many of those who were shooting at Xiaopingan quickly retreated after seeing Xiaopingan. For ordinary people, the overwhelming power of the summoner is not something ordinary people can contend with, and some people, pay attention. Xiaopingan's black hair and black eyes seemed very similar to a powerful summoner who destroyed the Doomsday Gang in Paris Legends. I heard that the powerful summoner has entered the catacombs. Stop shooting. A commander of People's Needle who led the team shouted immediately when he saw Xiaopingan's appearance. I'm Luoan. Xiaopingan said softly, the voice was not loud, but in this rainy weather, it still clearly penetrated into everyone's ears. As he spoke, Xiaopingan, he also vomited a mouthful of blood, his voice showing a hint of weakness, informed Mr. Curie and Mr. Wenger that the mission has been completed, the crisis in Paris is now over. The shooting finally stopped. Under everyone's gaze, Xiaopingan walked out step by step from the pit full of broken bones and rubble with slightly staggering steps. Behind Xiaopingan, several elite slave soldiers walked out of the underground tomb step by step, carrying a heavy metal container covered with thick lead. The metal container with a thick lead coat was provided to Xiaopingan by the Committee of Order. If nuclear raw materials were found in the underground tomb, it would be leaked, so use this to hold the nuclear raw materials. Everyone, please don't get close, please stay on guard outside. This container contains nuclear materials, I must ensure the safety of these nuclear materials now. As Xiaopingan opened his mouth, several containers of nuclear materials came out of the ground. The elite slave soldiers brought out from the tomb, after placing the financial container on the ground, made a vigilant posture, pointing their weapons outside, prohibiting anyone from approaching. The teams guarding District 14 were all alerted, and many people rushed over, setting up a cordon again around Xiaopingan. Looking at the dark pit and the countless broken bones around it, as well as the nuclear materials protected by the summoned elite slave soldiers. The local armed personnel from Paris who came one by one looked at Xiaoping'an with full eyes. Some showed reverence, and some saluted Xiaoping'an. Xiaoping'an looked tired after the battle, took out a pill bottle, and swallowed a handful of divine pills himself. Just now, he made such a big noise at the entrance of the cave by himself, and it did consume a lot of divine power and tons of explosives, but it seems that the effect of all this is very good. The summoners of the Order Committee arrived, the summoners of the Dragon Group arrived, Mr. Curie, Wenger, Fernando, Renaud and others all came in the rain. Everyone passed through the crowd and looked at the weak Xiaoping'an, and also saw the nuclear materials behind Xiaoping'an guarded by several elite slave soldiers. Tupolu and others were the first to rush over. Li Yunzhou and Tupolu immediately supported Xiaoping'an, while Fang Lingqian directly summoned the slave soldiers and took the radiation detector to detect the nuclear material. Financial container readings. The container is safe, the radiation readings are normal, and there is no nuclear leak. After hearing Fang Lingqian's words, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Luoan, you saved Paris again, Mr. Curie said excitedly, holding Xiaoping'an's hand. The success of Xiaoping'an's action once again proved the correctness of Mr. Curie's vision and decision-making. Mr. Rohn, I will propose to the President that you be awarded the French Knight Order. You are a hero. Mr. Wenger also said excitedly next to him. Xiaoping'an's expression seemed to have softened a little. Mr. Curie, Mr. Wenger, everyone, after a fierce battle, our mission has been completed. The castle and altar of the Devil's Eye in the catacombs have been destroyed, and the catacombs have been destroyed. It's safe. You can send someone in to check. My companions have left. I want to have a good rest now. I suggest you find a summoner who has the Requiem banner to thoroughly purify all the bones in the catacombs. Let those undead rest in peace completely without being disturbed. Otherwise, as long as this underground tomb exists, Paris will never be able to truly find peace. There will be evil forces that want to enter it and use the bones inside to do something. Mr. Luoan, we will seriously consider your suggestion, and then we will start the plan. No matter how long it takes or how much money it costs, we will let the souls who passed away in the catacombs gain true peace and tranquility, Curie Mr. said. Xiaoping'an smiled weakly and pointed at the metal container with the thick lead coat behind him. You guys should discuss among yourselves what to do with this thing. Mr. Wenger looked at the container and wanted to stand up and say something, but Tupolev picked up the metal container containing nuclear materials, threw it into their SUV, and winked at a member of the Dragon team. Several members of the Dragon team drove directly into the car and left with the nuclear materials without saying a word. I'm so tired. I need to take a good rest for a while. Everyone, I'll say goodbye. Xiaoping'an said to himself, and his whole figure merged into the water curtain under everyone's gaze, and slowly disappeared. Once again, the power of a summoner was demonstrated in front of everyone. This is the truly powerful summoner. Long live, long live. Long live Luoan, long live Luoan. The surrounding armed personnel from various factions were cheering at this time, and some fired shots into the air. These days, the pressure in the Paris catacombs has almost made everyone breathless. As frontline personnel, they feel it even more profoundly. At this moment, they heard that the crisis in the catacombs has been resolved, the Devil's Eye conspiracy has gone bankrupt, and Xiaoping'an the most critical nuclear materials were also found. Some people were so excited that they shed tears. Paris finally got through the difficulties and was saved. Teacher, you are amazing, I have heard all about it. In the evening, Emily returned to her villa with excitement on her face. As soon as she opened the door of the villa, she started shouting. Joy, excitement, pride, these emotions surging in her heart made Emily's cheeks red and extremely cute. At this time, Emily had quietly fused 3 Foundation Establishment world beads in the past few days, and had long since become a quasi-summoner. However, others did not know it yet. She was still in her patrol team, but she was only a member of the patrol team. For her, work suddenly became easier and she was completely at ease because her body was fused with the World Pearl and received the Divine Marrow Cleansing initiation. The living room of the villa was empty, and there was no response. Just when Emily thought Xiaopingan was still in the secret room, light and shadow flashed on the floor of the living room, and a mysterious golden rune appeared in the living room. Divine Wen walked out and stood in the living room, startling Emily. It was a divine text with the word hen, but Emily didn't know it. "Teacher, how did you?" Emily didn't understand for a moment. "Emily, when you see this image and voice I left behind, I have already left Paris. I left you a few world beads and 2 little spiders as gifts in the secret room. Before leaving, let me emphasize to you once again that you are my disciple and I will help you fuse the world beads. Don't let anyone know. Once you leak it, your life will be in danger, which is equivalent to committing suicide. In order to retaliate against me, the Devil's Eye will not let you go. This is why I left Paris. The people around me are high-risk entities and will be targeted by the Devil's Eye, so I need to disappear for a while." The light and shadow emerging from the ground smiled and began to talk to Emily, just like Xiaopingan standing in front of her. "Don't worry about me. We will have another chance to meet in the future. Maybe when will I stand in front of you again? Just like you have to meet your own challenges, I also have my challenges and things I have to do. I have always treated you as my sister. In fact, I don't want you to become a powerful summoner, but I just hope that you can live well, because being a powerful summoner means greater and more responsibilities, and it also means you will have more contact with darkness, which is especially cruel for a girl, but I also know that you are a girl with her own ideas, so I can only wish you well and give you a final message: don't be eager to be strong, but don't forget why you want to be strong. If your parents are still here, they would rather see a happy Emily than a strong Emily." After saying this, the light and shadow left by Xiaopingan disappeared, and everything seemed to have never appeared. A person who was accustomed to being around suddenly left. Only then did Emily realize that that person was so important to her. The gorgeous hall was empty, and Emily found that there was an inexplicable void in her heart. Emily stood blankly in the living room, her face already covered with tears. Even she herself didn't know why she was crying like this. "Teacher, thank you, I believe we will meet again, and I will definitely be your best student." Emily raised her face, with a look of perseverance behind her blurry tearful eyes. Order Committee Stronghold. Minister Yan frowned as he looked at the text message on Fang Lingqian and Fang Lingshan's special duty watches. "Is this the last message Luoan left for you?" "Yes, now Luoan can no longer be contacted, and the special watch on the dragon team can't contact him. He has disappeared. He should be worried about the next revenge of the Devil's Eye against him. He broke the devil in Paris. The Eye's plan, the Devil's Eye will not let him go." Fang Lingqian's voice was also a little low. "Those nuclear materials have been escorted by the number 3 action group and arranged to be transported back to the country by plane, and our mission this time has been completed. The French government just contacted me and wanted to give him a medal." Minister Yan looked at the information on the special service watch on Fang Lingyu's hand again, and could only sigh. He disappeared so suddenly, the Devil's Eye really can't do anything to him. "I think we should meet again in the future." "Well, I hope so." The last message Xiaopingan sent to Fang Lingqian's special service watch was, "I will be in seclusion for a while. I will contact you if necessary." Tupolu and the others also received the same message. The hero who saved Paris disappeared from Paris just like that, beyond everyone's expectation. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 567. A week later, Daangguo, Capital Area National University. Jingle bell. The bell rang through the campus, startling a group of leisurely pigeons near the clock tower lawn and flying into the air. The pigeons flew over the campus and circled twice. After a few pigeons landed on the roof of the teaching building of the university's School of Fine Arts, cooing. A group of college students full of youthful atmosphere were walking out of the teaching building and flocking to various parts of the campus. Xuanning, who has a ponytail, is youthful and beautiful, and is wearing a large blue overalls, is carrying a backpack, and is surrounded by several young students wearing black framed glasses. She is slightly plump, has a good face, and is wearing long clothes. A middle-aged woman wearing a skirt and looking intellectually elegant walked out of the building. When the surrounding students saw the middle-aged woman, they all said hello to the middle-aged woman, or looked at Xuanning next to her with envious eyes. That middle-aged woman is Professor Xuanhuan from the National University of Fine Arts in the Seoul metropolitan area. She is a world-renowned female painter whose works have great influence around the world. At those auctions, a work of Professor Xuanhuan was, any piece of it can be auctioned for a sky-high price of tens of millions. Okay, everyone performed well today. In 2 weeks, everyone will submit their deconstructive works. I will take a look at everyone's understanding of deconstruction. Xuanning, your clay sculpture skills have improved a lot recently. But there is still room for improvement. Professor Xuanhuan is a master in this field. I recommend that you join Professor Xuanhuan's studio during the holidays, practice for a period of time, and participate in the restoration of cultural relics in some temples and Taoist temples. You should improve. I have already told Professor Xuanhuan, and Professor Xuanhuan is also very happy. Ah, Professor Xuanhuan, thank you, teacher. Xuanning was slightly surprised by Professor Xuanhuan's sudden kindness. Professor Xuanhuan smiled and talked to the students around him. Finally, he waved and walked directly to the parking lot next to the teaching building. A group of students from the Academy of Fine Arts separated from Professor Xuanhuan at the entrance of the teaching building. The students are rejuvenated. Xuanning and the 2 girls and 2 boys beside her were talking and laughing together, and walked towards the cafeteria. Xuanning, where are you going now for the weekend tomorrow? A short-haired beauty standing next to Xuanning squeezed Xianning's shoulder. I'm not going anywhere. I'll go to the library and the clay sculpture classroom. Xuanning touched his stomach and looked at the canteen in the distance, showing his true nature as a foodie. I feel like I'm so hungry. Xuanning, you don't show your face in real life. Have you noticed that Professor Yu has taken good care of you in the past few days? A round-faced girl looked at Xuanning enviously. Oh, is it so? Professor Xuanhuan's studio is staffed by senior brothers and sisters who are already very capable. Professor Xuanhuan is very picky. Professor Yu rarely recommends newcomers to intern there. A boy next to him pushed up his glasses. He also looked at Xuanning with envy. One of our seniors has applied several times, but Professor Xuanhuan has not approved it. Since your grandpa came to the school to see you last time, the dean of our Academy of Fine Arts has smiled much more kindly when he saw you. You didn't tell us before that your grandpa is so powerful and is the vice chairman of the National Order Committee. What if your grandpa doesn't come once? We don't know how long you will keep it from us. So today it's you, the wealthy lady, who's treating me. Do you agree? Agree. How many times have I told you, the old man and I really have nothing to do with each other? Xuanning said helplessly. Okay, we understand. Do you want to keep a low profile? The people next to them looked at each other and laughed tacitly. No one believed Xuanning's explanation, including the college leaders. Xuanning, who was surrounded by people teasing her, could only smile bitterly and had no way to explain. Since Wang 11 and the old man visited her in person at school last month, Xuanning has unknowingly become the focus of many people's attention in school. When the old man came to see Xuanning, he was riding in a state-of-the-art luxury car with a special pass for taking photos that could travel unimpeded in the capital area. He was followed by summoner guards. When they heard the news that the old man had arrived at the school, a group of school leaders came to greet him in a hurry, thinking it was the leader coming to inspect the work. But the old man did not meet any school leaders. He just asked the secretary around him to speak a few words with the school leaders. The old man himself came to the Academy of Fine Arts to find Xuanning. He and Xuanning walked for a while by the school's artificial lake and chatted for a while, and then left the school. Then the entire academy knew that Xuanning from the Academy of Fine Arts was the old man's granddaughter. Xuanning's life and study in the school also experienced some subtle changes. The dean, professors, and teachers of the Academy of Fine Arts smiled more when they saw Xuanning. His attitude became kinder, and the college gave Xuanning more opportunities. It seemed that he wanted to train Xuanning as a future star of the college. In the past, the few boys who were tired of being around Xuanning because of their good family conditions also took the initiative, disappeared, and Xuanning's world became quiet. The old man's current status in Dian Kingdom is that of a standard national leader. Usually, if people want to see the old man, they can only see it on TV and newspapers. No one thought that the old man's granddaughter was at the Academy of Fine Arts. Seeing how I came to the school to see my granddaughter despite his busy schedule, she was the apple of my eye. Now Xuanning feels the trouble of being the center of attention for the first time in her life. Even at this moment, she was walking on campus with her classmates, but she could still see many students on the road and around her, quietly casting their eyes on herself. I don't know if it was telepathy, but among the gazes around her, Xuanning suddenly felt a special gaze. She suddenly turned her head and looked at her 9 o'clock position. An ordinary-looking man in his 30s wearing glasses, wearing a gray trench coat, a light yellow scarf around his neck, a peaked cap on his head, holding a newspaper in his hand, was standing not far away. He was looking at himself under some ginkgo trees. The man looked like a faculty member or teaching assistant at the university, or a graduate student from another college. The man's eyes were extremely focused, a little rude, staring straight at Xuanning, and the people around him. There is something slightly different about quietly observing without leaving any trace. Xuanning frowned slightly and continued to walk toward the school cafeteria, talking and laughing with the classmates around her. Seeing the smile and youthful look on Xuanning's face, and listening to the conversations of those around him, Xiaopinghan smiled slightly, and a stone fell to the ground in his heart. He took his eyes away from Xuanning. Xuanning walked a few dozen meters. For some reason, the gaze of the man just now always lingered in her heart, lingering, and she felt inexplicably familiar. She turned her head and looked in the direction just now. There was nothing under the ginkgo tree. The man has disappeared. Xiaopinghan walked out of the gate of the National University in the capital area, got into a taxi, and asked the taxi to take him to the port near the capital area. After getting out of the car, he entered a roadside cafe and sat in a booth. Asked for some coffee and food, then moved his hand, and the special watch of the order committee appeared in his hand, and he sent a message to Minister Yan. Minister Yan, I am in the capital area of Dian Kingdom. Can I still cash in on the rewards of the 3 boundary beads that you promised me for finding the nuclear materials? Before the waiter in the coffee shop could bring the coffee, just over 10 seconds later, Minister Yan's message came back, which was very timely. Of course it can be cashed. I am in the capital area. We have prepared the G-Pearl. How can I give it to you? I am at the 5 Flavors Cafe at Seabird Bay Pier. Wait a moment, I'll be there in 20 minutes. After contacting Minister Yan, Xiaopinghan put away his watch and looked at the scenery on the pier outside the coffee shop. Compared with the last time he came to the capital area, the order in the capital area of Dian Kingdom has basically returned to the same as before the arrival of the Holy Spirit. The port outside is filled with all kinds of ships, which is extremely prosperous and lively. From time to time, a melodious whistle sounded. Sir, this is what you asked for. A fat ant in the cafe carried a tray and brought up the coffee and food Xiaopingan asked for. Xiaopingan finished eating slowly, less than 20 minutes later. Jingle. The doorbell of the coffee shop rang. Minister Yan, who was wearing a gray suit and a black hat, was carrying a black briefcase and walked in from the outside. His sharp eyes swept over the few customers in the store. When Xiaopingan arrived, Minister Yan's eyes were still slightly confused. Xiaopingan smiled slightly at Minister Yan and pointed to the position opposite him. Only then did Minister Yan confirm the target and walk towards Xiaopingan. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 568. The other customers in the store didn't pay much attention to the person who entered the store. Minister Yan's old-fashioned appearance at the moment was similar to that of a company clerk, accountant, or tax inspector on the dock, and he was still middle-aged. Unobtrusive. Minister Yan came directly to Xiaopingan's booth and sat down. A pair of sharp eyes swept over Xiaopingan's face, and he seemed to have found some clues. He took a long breath and said, "Mr. Luo, it's been a long time." "Haha, it didn't take long, just 7 or 8 days. Minister Yan came very quickly, he arrived in less than 20 minutes. "Well, after I received your message, I flew over by helicopter. It's very convenient. The helicopter is parked on a nearby building." The two of them had just said a few words when the fat ant in the store came over with a menu. "A cup of coffee, without sugar, thank you." Before the fat ant came over, Minister Yan had already turned around and ordered. The fat ant in the store turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, she brought a cup of hot coffee over. In the interval of less than half a minute, Minister Yan's sharp eyes habitually scanned the other people in the store and the surrounding environment. After seeing that there was indeed no unsightly person here, the expression on his face relaxed slightly. A little, then his eyes fell on Xiaopingan's face, and he smiled slightly. Advanced cross-dressing mask plus illusion. The illusion completely covered up the flaw in the cross-dressing mask. Mr. Luoan's cross-dressing skills are impressive. At this moment, Xiaopingan was actually wearing a cross-dressing mask, and he also applied a little illusion effect to his face. The combination of the two made it almost impossible for ordinary people to distinguish. The drag mask was found in the Castle of Bones at the Eye of the Devil in the Paris catacombs. The first time Xiaopingan went to the skeleton castle, he quickly killed the people in the castle without searching the castle carefully. When he went in for the second time, in order to set up the scene, he blew up almost half of the castle. And found some useful things, and this cross-dressing mask was one of them. Instead of using the transformation technique, he used a cross-dressing mask and illusion to change his appearance. Although the latter was troublesome to use, it was Xiaopingan's way of protecting himself and deliberately misleading others. If he wanted to use the secret technique of transformation to change his identity in the future, if he had a different face, it would be perfect, and it would be difficult for the order committee to suspect him. You should know my current situation. I have to be careful. Xiaopingan sighed. The Eye of the Devil has offered a reward of 1 billion euros for my head. If I show up, everyone will be killed. The world's killers will come looking for me. Just a few days ago, the French government held a press conference and awarded Rhône the Order of France without Luoan attending. On the same day, Luoan's bounty of 1 billion was posted on the dark web. Euros, that's the price offered by Devil's Eye. Mr. Luoan's partners are very capable. Minister Yan looked at Xiaopingan with a smile. If our order committee has similar tasks in the future, I wonder if I can ask Mr. Luoan to invite your friends to complete it together? The remuneration is negotiable. After Xiaopingan completed his mission, Minister Yan personally entered the underground tomb to understand the situation. From the situation and information he learned, Minister Yan concluded that there were at least 5 to 7 people in Xiaopingan's team. Only summoners above the 4 elements realm can compete with the mages who destroyed the Devil's Eye and destroy the altar of the Devil's Eye. It seems that Mr. Lugoan is not a lone ranger. Behind Lugoan, there is an 80% chance that there is a powerful and secretive summoner organization or a group of summoner companions with extremely powerful actions. Fortunately, this organization is hostile to the evil eye and can be won over. This is the conclusion of Minister Yan's final report on the Paris action submitted to the Order Committee. Now that the wind is blowing hard, my friends have to stay quiet for a while and it is not convenient for them to come out for the time being. Some of them are not as carefree as me. Xiaopingan shrugged and spread his hands. Understood, Minister Yan nodded empathetically, then pushed the black briefcase over, opened it directly, and revealed the contents. The 3 world beads rewarded by the Paris mission are inside. These 3 world beads are inside. Beads should be uncommon. You can take a look. This world bead is a divine eye world bead. Minister Yan pointed to a silver world bead in his briefcase with Jikane Sushi in 4 small seals and said to Xiaoping and then pointed to a boundary bead next to it with a few small seal characters of Shikuanglun Shui. The divine inscriptions on these 2 divine power boundary beads are consistent. We guess that these 2 boundary beads may have something. There is a special connection, so these 2 world beads are often put together. The same divine writing on the 2 boundary beads that Minister Yan mentioned is just the word in small seal script. Xiaoping also pretended to look solemn and nodded. Minister Yan pointed to the 3rd world bead. This is a very rare world bead that summons the architect. Although there have been only a handful of people who have successfully integrated it, and there has not been one in hundreds of years, but fortunately it is this world bead. The mortality rate is also very low, basically no one will die. How about it, are Mr. Lugoan satisfied? Of course Xiaopingan is satisfied. He has never fused these 3 world beads. Of course he is satisfied. As for the world bead that Minister Yan said can summon architects, the world bead has the 4 words Yu Hao builds a tower on it. The word Xiaopingan is not unfamiliar to Xiaopingan. Anyone who studies architecture should know this great figure in Chinese history. The first wooden construction manual in human history, the Wooden Classic, was written by Yu Hao. Wang Xiu once described in an article the construction process of the Kaibao Temple Pagoda in Kaifeng, Henan, presided over by Yu Hao. During the construction process, Yu Hao had even considered factors such as the climate and wind direction of Kaifeng in the next 100 years. The influence of the temple tower can be regarded as a model in the history of architecture. As soon as he heard what Minister Yan said, Xiaopingan knew why so few people could successfully fuse the Yu Hao Tower world bead, because even if the fused summoner understood architecture, he could not reach the level of Yu Hao. Yes, it's also very difficult. Very good, I have accepted these 3 world beads. Xiaopingan moved his hand and took the 3 world beads in his briefcase into his space warehouse. Does Mr. Lugoan want to stay in Dian country for a while? Minister Yan asked. It depends on the situation. I may stay for a while, or I may leave soon. I understand. Devil's eyes are not that rampant in Great Yan Kingdom. If Mr. Lugoan has any questions, you can contact me at any time. The door of the Order Committee is open to Mr. Lugoan at any time. Thank you, I believe we will have the opportunity to cooperate again. This is the key to the Order Committee's safe house in the capital area. If Mr. Lugoan needs it, he can go to the safe house to take shelter temporarily. If there is danger, the Order Committee's Special Operations Force will rush to the rescue in the shortest possible time. House, the address of the safe house is in the envelope. Minister Yan then took out an envelope and handed it over. Xiaopingan took the envelope, and Minister Yan finished his coffee and said goodbye simply. The God of Fortune child followed Minister Yan out naughtily. When he saw Minister Yan leaving the coffee house, he walked towards a tall building not far away. After walking 100 meters from the coffee house, a capable man in a black suit came over. Minister, we have completed the control near the coffee house. 2 drones and an unmanned underwater vehicle are already in place. Nonsense, This person is not the summoner of the Devil's Eye. He has evacuated everyone. A summoner of the seventh realm wants to leave. It is useless to rely on these things. It will also make people misunderstand. Don't let the dragon group see it. If there is any problem with our joke, I will explain it to several committee members. Minister Yan's face suddenly turned cold. The man in black lowered his head and quickly retreated. Silently, the decorations around the coffee shop, in the sky at the pier and under the sea, disappeared, and a group of people also left silently. Minister Yan went to the top floor of the building and left in a helicopter as expected. When the surroundings of the cafe were quiet again, Xiaoping paid, then walked out of the cafe, and disappeared at the pier a moment later. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 569. More than an hour after leaving the cafe, in the thick underground rock layer beneath the capital area of Dian Kingdom, Xiaoping's figure suddenly emerged from an angular underground granite layer like a ghost and bubbles, looking in front of him. This small underground cave space finally showed a smile on his face, and he said to himself, "This is it. The underground is not monolithic." Those who have experience in mining exploration and underground cave exploration or underground tunnel excavation know that the structure of the underground world in the world we live in is very strange. In addition to underground rivers, there are often naturally formed caves or large and small spaces like caves deep underground. Ordinary people's ability to explore the underground is very limited, mostly limited to some caves on the surface. By borrowing special drilling equipment, or digging underground cities and underground bases, humans can currently drill underground to about 10,000 meters. You know, even if you are a summoner, it is not easy to enter the depths of the underground world. It is full of difficulties and is not much better than ordinary people. As for space-invading creatures such as sandworms and magic rats, their activities underground are also restricted. The special hard stratum and the lack of air environment make it difficult for sandworms and magic rats to survive. The only people who can truly come and go freely in the underground world are summoners who have mastered the earth escape technique. After leaving the cafe, Xiaoping escaped underground in the capital area of Dian Kingdom when no one was paying attention, and began to find a place for himself underground. Xiaoping has already found several underground gaps and natural caves underground. Those underground gaps and caves are either too shallow from the ground, only a few hundred meters or 1 or 2 kilometers away, or the space is relatively closed with no air, or their temperature and humidity are not suitable. The underground cave in front of us is pitch black, with a volume of medium or small, probably only tens of thousands of cubic meters. The cave is surrounded by large areas of granite and limestone, and between the granite and limestone, there are several lines. The shortest one is less than 10 centimeters and the longest one is no more than half a meter wide. The gaps extend underground. In those underground gaps, there are some underground mosses growing on the rocks. You can hear faint sounds. The sound of water flowing in the underground river came from deep within the gap. What's even more rare is that there is air here, and there is no feeling of stuffiness. The flowing ground river disturbs the air here. The air here may have existed millions of years ago when the landform here was formed, or it may have been brought by the underground river, or brought by the underground plants in the cave, but no matter what, there is indeed air here. Xiaoping is very satisfied with the environment here. It is estimated that no living beings will come to this kind of place for millions of years. The underground rock and soil layer with a depth of more than 10,000 meters can block all the fluctuations of divine power here. More importantly, what's amazing is that this place is underground in the central area of the capital circle of the Great Yan Kingdom. Above this cave is where the Ministry of Defense, the Committee of Order, the Congress, and other important institutions gathered in the Great Yan Kingdom. Needless to say, the security and defense are tight. No one will inexplicably carry out a 10,000-meter drilling project above, and the Devil's Eye and space-invading creatures will avoid this area. Therefore, the underground here is also the safest. No one will come here. Disturb. I'm afraid Minister Yan wouldn't have thought that he would be right under their noses. Xiaopinggan smiled, looked at the various strange stones around him, and with a wave of his hand, the burning sky vermilion bird was summoned. The fiery red sky burning Suzaku brings fiery red light and heat to this place where there has been no light for millions of years. The high temperature brought by the burning sky Suzaku directly makes a large area in this cave as rugged as a mountain. The granite melted, and a hemispherical space was melted in that piece of granite. Under the flames of the burning sky vermilion bird, the melted granite was like clay in the hands of a child, gradually solidifying into a simple stone in the flow. The look of the bed and stone table. The burning sky Suzaku flapped its wings, and the heat in the melted granite gathered into little sparks, which were absorbed by the burning sky Suzaku again and converged on the burning sky Suzaku's wings. Xiaopinggan waved his hand, and the burning sky Suzaku was absorbed by him again. Arriving at the secret mandala. When the burning sky Suzaku disappeared, in front of Xiaopinggan, there was a glorious and neat hemispherical space hidden in a huge rock. In this space, there was a stone bed and a stone table. The stone bed and table were not exquisite, but formed a rough shape. They looked like melted candles, but they were basically usable, and the temperature had returned to normal. Xiaopinggan entered this hemispherical space, took a look, and nodded with satisfaction. It should be no problem to settle here. From now on, this place will be his secret stronghold in the Great Yan Kingdom. As long as this planet is not destroyed, this place there should be no problem, his clone can wait here safely for his return. If he had mastered such a powerful Earth escape technique when he first arrived in Paris, he and Emily might not have a chance to get to know each other again. He took out a few moonstones and casually embedded them on the walls around the semicircular space. There was light in the dark space, and it looked a little more romantic. Then he took out a tortoise-shell 5 elements reversed bagua sword array and activated it, released a few mechanism spiders, and threw them in an inconspicuous corner. This space was suddenly under the double protection of the array disk and mechanism technique, and was foolproof. Even if there are any changes, he can sense them in time and use Earth escape to escape at any time. This is the safest safe house. Unfortunately, there are too few warm jade on the Earth. It would be better if there is a warm jade stone bed. Xiaopinggan nodded with satisfaction, feeling that there is no longer anything he was worried, so he took out a thick mat used for meditation and spread it on the stone bed. Xiaopinggan sat cross-legged on the mattress and took out the 3 boundary beads he just got from Minister Yan. At this moment, the upper limit of the divine power of Xiaopinggan's secret mandala has reached 8,566 points, which is getting closer and closer to the 8,820 points of the 7 Yang realm. As long as there is a boundary bead, the breakthrough is right in front of you. If you encounter a special boundary bead, there is maybe a few can complete the final breakthrough. Xiaopinggan is going to collect world beads on the Earth to let his divine power break through 8,820 points, and then return to the god-killing insect realm to find the divine spring of the 7 sun realm to complete the final advancement. Let's see what surprises you can bring me first. Xiaopinggan picked up the boundary bead Ji Chang learned to shoot and began to fuse it with blood. Before, Minister Yan said that this world bead was the divine eye world bead. Xiaopinggan had doubts in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud because as far as he knew, the first thing Ji Chang learned about shooting was his eyes, and he worked hard on them. It is also the standard for marksmen, so it is very normal for this world bead to have the ability to strengthen the summoner's eyes after fusion. However, in history and legend, it was Fei Wei, a sharpshooter from Handan, who taught Ji Chang how to practice eye training. After Ji Chang became a master of eye training and learned the unique skills of archery from Fei Wei, Ji Chang heard Fei Wei say that he was the most powerful in the world. Archery was mastered by a man named Gan Ying, so Ji Chang went to Gan Ying to learn the skills, and finally learned the peak archery skill of shooting without shooting from Gan Ying. According to the records of Taiping Yulan, Fei Wei was Gan Ying's student and disciple. After Fei Wei became a master of archery, the two had an archery competition. Fei Wei secretly shot Gan Ying with an arrow, and Gan Ying was stunned. He caught the arrows shot by Fei Wei, and then shot them at Fei Wei. Fei Wei ran around the tree, but the arrows shot by Gan Fei also chased Fei Wei around the tree as if they had eyes and could fly. Fei Wei was ultimately defeated and resigned. When Ji Chang learned archery, if he only learned the skills of eye training and archery from Fei Wei, he would only have learned half of it. The highest level of Ji Chang's learning of archery was actually to learn the pinnacle of archery without shooting from Gan Ying. Therefore, those people who previously fused Ji Changxiu's world bead probably did not fuse it perfectly, but only partially fused it. If this world bead can be perfectly integrated, it may bring other surprises to themselves. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 570. Good. The Divine Arrow. As soon as Xiaopinggan opened his eyes, he saw that he was watching the excitement among the surging crowd, while everyone around him was clapping excitedly. There was a tall tower not far away, and there were two Handan people at the door of the tower. Words, this is an open space outside Handan city. There are many vendors doing small business around it. There are many people coming and going at the city gate. Everyone gathers here, and I am also wearing coarse clothes and carrying a bag on my back. A package that looks dusty. The person being watched by everyone was a tall man with a beard on his face. The man was shooting a bow and arrow. The man's target was a big poplar tree outside the city. The big tree was more than 100 meters away from the man. Xiaopinggan looked towards the big tree and saw an arrow nailed to it. But the people around him cheered loudly. Xiaopinggan was still confused. Was it just a shot at a big tree? What was there to be happy about? As soon as this question arose in his mind, Xiaopinggan saw the man shoot another arrow. Xiaopinggan saw this arrow clearly. The arrow shot from behind hit the end of the arrow shaft in front. The sharp arrow directly hit the shaft and feathers of the arrow shot in front of the big tree. Scattered, the feathers flew like catkins blown by the wind, causing the people around to cheer. Xiaopinggan was also shocked. This difficult skill is no longer as simple as shooting the 10th ring. The standard for shooting a blade or a fly from 100 meters away is that the arrow at the back must break the end of the arrow shaft in front. There are so many arrows, and on the big tree in front, there is only the shaft of the last arrow left. The man shot another arrow and fired the arrow shaft in front of him again. The scattered arrow shafts fell under the tree, and the people around him cheered again. "Excuse me, uncle, who is this archer and how can he have such a high skill?" To be on the safe side, Xiaopinggan also asked the uncle next to him. "This is Fei Wei, our #1 marksman in Zhao State." The big tree next to him said proudly, and then clapped his hands again. "It is indeed Fei Wei." Xiaopinggan was watching from the side, waiting for Fei Wei to finish shooting the arrows, and the crowd of spectators dispersed. Fei Wei came to the target poplar tree alone and was using a knife to prepare the arrow clusters in the trunk. After they were dug out, Xiaopinggan came to the side and didn't say anything. They just helped Fei Wei dig out the arrow clusters from the tree. The arrow clusters of this arrow were not cheap when made of copper. The arrow clusters could be dug out and new arrowheads could be forged. Fei Wei glanced at Xiaopinggan, who came over to help in a muffled voice, and said nothing. He only waited for the arrow clusters to be dug out before he spoke. "Young man, I see you are so tired. Have you just come to Handan?" "To be honest, I came to Handan because I heard that Fei Wei is the best archer in our Zhao country. I wanted to learn archery from you. I didn't expect to see you today. You are indeed worthy of your reputation. Can you teach me your archery skills?" Oh, you want to learn archery from me? Fei Wei glanced at Xiaoping'an and nodded slightly. I see you are not weak, you must have practiced before, right? Well, I've been practicing for a while, and I also like hunting. I can barely shoot a bow. What's your name and where do you come from? Fei Wei continued to ask. This question would be confusing to ask other people who have integrated the world pearl. But who is Xiaoping'an? The answer is natural, my name is Ji Chang. I come from Ningjin, Xingdi. Fei Wei laughed, put away his bow, and suddenly took out an arrow cluster with one hand, piercing Xiaoping'an's eyes. The movement was fast, and the sharp arrow cluster almost touched Xiaoping'an's eyelashes. Fei Wei he just stopped and saw something sharp coming towards him. Although Xiaoping'an didn't shy away from it, his eyes naturally blinked twice. Yes, you are brave enough and don't need to hide. For the sake of you being from Zhao, I will tell you that if you want to learn archery from me, you must first learn not to blink. When will you learn not to blink? Even if you are stabbed by a sharp blade or shot by a sharp arrow, you can keep your eyes on the target without blinking, and come to me again, Fei Wei said, put the arrow clusters back into the deerskin bag, turned around and left. Xiaoping'an did not chase after him, but bowed deeply to Fei Wei's back. Then he did not enter Handan city again, but turned around and left. Ji Chang's hometown is Jikangzhuang, Ningjin County, Hebei Province. Of course, there was no Jikangzhuang at this time. Jikangzhuang was later renamed in memory of Ji Chang. The distance between Xingdi and Handan is not too far, but 3 days later, Xiaoping'an has already returned to Ningjin County. Xiaoping'an originally wanted to find someone to ask and find a way to return to his home first, but as soon as he returned to Ningjin, he was recognized by an old man driving a bullock cart on the road. The old man was sitting on the bullock cart. When he passed Xiaoping'an, he tilted his head and looked at Xiaoping'an, and then laughed, "Isn't this Ji Chang? Why, I heard that you are going to Handan to learn archery from a sharpshooter. Did you learn it back so quickly?" Xiaoping'an secretly sweated in his heart. People at this time were simple. Ningjin was not a big place, and there was probably no news or gossip. A Ningjin person went out to learn from a sharpshooter, and almost everyone in the county knew about it. Well, this Ji Chang seems to be somewhat famous in Ningjin, and he can still be recognized by others. I met the sharpshooter. The sharpshooter said that I am not good enough. I need to go home and practice again. Xiaoping'an could only answer like this. Okay, I just have to go collect the leather and pass by your house. Come on, get in the car. On the way. Xiaoping'an breathed a sigh of relief and got on the bullock cart directly. After a few insinuations on the bullock cart, Xiaoping'an found out what was going on in Ji Chang's family. Ji Chang's family conditions are actually very good. Several generations of the family have accumulated business. In Ji Chang's generation, the family has left more than 300 acres of fertile land and can usually collect a little rent. Because the family conditions are favorable, Ji Chang has been fond of archery since he was a child. He often goes hunting with hunters and can catch prey for sale. He is considered a well-known archer and a child of a wealthy family in Ningjin, and many people know about him. The old man who drove the carriage was named Feng. He was a small fur trader in Ningjin County, and he knew Ji Chang. The ox cart traveled slowly on the road. 2 hours later, the ox cart arrived at a village with hundreds of households. It stopped outside a courtyard with several courtyards, several large tile-roofed houses and a jujube tree in front of the door. Okay, Ji Chang, you're home. I'll come and collect the prey when I reach it again. I heard that there were big insects in Dongshan. A few days ago, there were wealthy merchants who wanted to collect the skins of the big insects. Is there any arrow holes? Xiaoping'an got out of the car, came to the door, and patted the door. After a while, the door opened, revealing the face of a 15 or 16-year-old girl. When the girl saw Xiaopingan, she became happy and turned towards he shouted in the room, "Madam, madam, the master is back." Sure enough, it's here. Xiaopingan breathed a sigh of relief and walked directly in. Then he saw a pretty woman with a skirt and hairpin walking out quickly. When she saw Xiaopingan, the woman seemed to relax. He said with a smile on his face, "It'll be good to come back, it'll be good to come back, Xuanhuan, go to the kitchen and tell grandma to cook 2 more dishes tonight." Okay. Ji Chang's family has a virtuous wife, a maid, and a helper. Ji Chang is the head of the family. The main income of the family is the rent from the family. Because Ji Chang is powerful, he is in Zhuangzi. There are also a group of friends in Lihe County, and none of the tenants under him dare not pay the rent, so the life of this family is pretty good. At least they don't have to run around for life. Ji Chang can concentrate on archery and martial arts. When the tenant rent was collected, Ji Chang's wife was in charge of all the affairs of the family, and the family lived in harmony and beauty. Xiaopingan came back this time just to practice his eyesight. Normally, Xiaopingan watches the clouds rise and set, the sun rises and the moon sets, the hawks, the rabbits, the dogs in the village, and the ants on the ground. He tries his best to keep his eyes open without blinking, even if his eyes are red and full of tears. Without blinking. Ji Chang's wife usually weaves at home. Xiaopingan lies directly under the loom, staring at the tension on the loom without blinking. This kind of training is extremely boring. If you don't have confidence and perseverance, you will give up halfway. In this way, after 2 years of staring, Xiaopingan trained Ji Chang's eyes to be so bright that they would no longer blink passively due to conditioned reflexes and fatigue. Xiaopingan went to Handan again and met Fei Wei again. Fei Wei still remembered Xiaopingan. After testing Xiaopingan's non-blinking skills, Fei Wei knew that Xiaopingan really wanted to learn, so he said to Xiaopingan, "You just can't blink now, but it's not enough. If you want to become a marksman, your eyes still don't know how to see. You have to train your eyes to see small things as big, small things as small, and see an ant as big as a sieve. Then come to me." If most people heard Fei Wei say this, they would definitely think that Fei Wei was making things difficult and did not want to teach him, but Xiaopingan knew that Fei Wei was not making things difficult. This process of eye training is actually the same as the process when Lizzie learned to fly with the wind. Both are beyond common sense, but they both develop the potential of the human body. The process of eye training is to increase the energy consciousness in the human body for a long time. The intensity is concentrated on this process of the eyes. This process may develop the potential of human eyes. When he returned home again, Xiaopingan found a hair from a yak's tail, and then found a louse. He tied the louse with oxtail hairs and hung it under a window at home. Every day, he concentrated on staring at the louse. Just 10 days later, the louse that was originally as small as a sesame seed suddenly grew larger in Xiaopingan's eyes. It looked almost the size of a broad bean. This made Xiaopingan feel refreshed and knew that his visual ability had been developed a little bit. But he still persists. There are a lot of lice in the countryside. If the louse dies, just replace it with a new one. If there were no lice, then flies, mosquitoes, sesame seeds, and mung beans would all do. Anyway, as long as they were small things, Xiaopingan would tie them up with cow hairs and hang them under the window and stare at them every day. After watching this for 3 years, the louse hanging under the window was almost as big as a wheel in Xiaopingan's eyes. Xiaopingan was 10 meters away, and even the tiny vellus tentacles on the louse could be clearly seen. Chew. Xiaopingan arrived in Handan again and found Fei Wei. After Fei Wei passed the test, he was moved by Xiaopingan's spirit and found that Xiaopingan was really determined to learn archery, so he spent a year teaching his archery skills to Xiaopingan. It wasn't until the night when Xiaopingan was ready to start training that Fei Wei and Xiaopingan were drinking. Fei Wei drank a little too much and then he said to Xiaopingan, My archery skills are actually nothing. There are actually archery skills in this world, someone more powerful than me. Oh, who is that? That's my master, and that's your master Gan Ying. What I taught you is to shoot when you have something to shoot. Only when you have a bow can you shoot. And my master Gan Ying is the best archer in the world. He has reached the point where he can't shoot without shooting the realm of. Xiaoping'an's heart skipped a beat, knowing that a hidden mission was coming. Ah, where can I find the master? The last time I saw your master was more than 20 years ago. He said that he had found a place to live in seclusion in Shu. The scenery there was beautiful and the sun was shining brightly. Your master no longer wanted to be born. In these years, I have not seen him again. Saw him. Xiaoping'an said goodbye to Fei Wei, returned home and made some preparations, then went directly to Shu to look for Gan Ying. Xiaoping'an searched for him in Sichuan for a year, and it didn't matter. No one in Shu had heard of Gan Ying's name, but he still didn't give up. Later, Xiaoping'an focused his search on Mount Imei, and searched near Mount Imei. He searched back and forth for more than half a year, but found nothing. On this day, while Xiaoping'an was searching on the mountain, he suddenly heard a slight hum from a person in the grass in the valley below the mountain road. Xiaoping'an was a little curious, so he went down the slope of the mountain road to the mountain below. In the valley, I saw an old man lying in the grass. The old man was dressed like a woodcutter and had a hatchet on his body. Next to him, there was a pile of beaten firewood. The woodcutter seemed to have accidentally slipped down the mountain path above. Ah, father-in-law, are you okay? Xiaoping'an quickly helped the father-in-law sit up. I'm old, and I feel uncomfortable walking on some mountain roads. I accidentally slipped down just now. Brother, can you help me up? The woodcutter said to Xiaoping'an in an authentic Sichuan accent. Old man, where is your home? Let me take you back, Xiaoping'an said, and he carried the woodcutter on his back. Brother, you are a good person. My home is on the hillside at the foot of the mountain, only 7 or 8 miles away from here. Old man, show me the way and I'll take you home. The woodcutter thanked him profusely. Xiaoping'an carried the woodcutter out of the ravine, then walked 4 or 5 miles on the mountain road, and finally sent the woodcutter to his home. It was really difficult to walk on a mountain road for more than 10 miles, carrying someone on my back. The woodcutter's home was a small wooden house at the foot of the mountain. Apart from the woodcutter, there was no one else in the small wooden house. Brother, can you please help me pick up the firewood that I just chopped? I finally found the firewood and I have to sell it for money. I don't want to waste it. When he got home, the woodcutter said to him again. Xiaoping'an said, Old man, how much is that firewood worth? I bought it. Xiaoping'an was stunned for a moment, then he took out the money to buy the woodcutter's firewood. Oh, no reward for no work. Brother, I can't take your money. I only want my firewood. Brother, you are tired today, so forget it. I will go on my own after I have a day off. The woodcutter said sheepishly. Xiaoping'an glanced at the father-in-law and smiled. I was too abrupt. Dad, please wait at home while I go pick up your firewood for you. After that, Xiaoping'an left the wooden house and walked another 7 or 8 miles of mountain road back to the small ravine. He found the place where the woodcutter had left the firewood and picked up a load of firewood. After doing this, by the time Xiaoping'an returned to the woodcutter's cabin, it was getting a little late, the sun was almost setting, and Xiaoping'an himself was sweating from exhaustion. Xiaoping'an hadn't even taken a sip of water when the woodcutter said to him again, Brother, you have picked up all my firewood. Can you help me deliver the firewood to Chunfeng Tower in Liujiazhuang down the mountain? It's firewood for Chunfeng Tower, I promised to send it to Chunfeng Tower. Okay, father-in-law, please wait a moment, I will deliver it to you right now, Xiaoping'an said. Without getting angry, he just picked up the firewood and was about to leave. The roast chicken and wine at Chunfenglu are good. Brother, please use the money from selling firewood to bring me some wine and food. I haven't eaten anything all day. That equals the woodcutter also confessed. Xiaopingan nodded, picked up the firewood and went down the mountain. After walking 5 or 6 miles, he finally found Chunfeng Tower and delivered the load of firewood. The shopkeeper of Chunfeng Tower paid for the firewood, but the firewood was not enough to buy wine and roast chicken. Xiaopingan added money by himself, bought wine and roast chicken, and took them back to the woodcutter's cabin. When I returned to the cabin, it was completely dark. I handed the wine and the roast chicken wrapped in lotus leaves to the woodcutter. The woodcutter finally laughed and invited Xiaopingan to drink wine and eat chicken together. Xiaopingan did not refuse. Just having a fire with the old man in the cabin, drinking wine and eating roast chicken. After 2 glasses of wine, the old man put down his glass and suddenly said, "How are Fei Wei in Handan?" Xiaopingan was stunned, looking at the old man's smile. He quickly bowed to the old man. "Ji Chang has met the master." "Ha ha ha." The old man laughed, with a different look on his brows, and there was still the aura of a woodcutter on his body. "That boy Fei Wei is the most unreasonable and irritable person. When I taught him my skills, he felt that he has almost learned it, and in order to compete with me, he actually sneaked up on me. However, I didn't teach him my ability to shoot without shooting. He was too impatient and didn't subdue his anger. He just wanted to go out after learning a little bit. I really want to teach him the skills of the god of non-shooting. He will cause big troubles, but his vision of people is not bad, and he can teach you some skills. It seems that he has grown a lot in the past few years. You are good. You can learn my ability to shoot without shooting."